Good evening from Chicago. I'm Chris Hayes, and we are now less than 14 hours away from public impeachment hearings of the President of the United States for just the fourth time in all of American history. Those hearings will be broadcast live across every major broadcast and cable news network for Americans to watch. That coverage starts right here on MSNBC at 9 in the morning. But even before the hearings, we have known from the get-go, from the very first piece of publicly released evidence, the notes of President Trump's call with the president of Ukraine, that the president tried to coerce the leader of a foreign occupied country to manufacture dirt on a political opponent. When the Ukrainian president told President Trump he was ready to buy more American weapons, President Trump responded infamously, quote, "I would like you to do us a favor, though." He then brought up Joe Biden and his son and said, quote, "A lot of people want to find out about that, so whatever you can do." Since the release of that document, we have learned from dozens and dozens of hours of closed-door congressional testimony that Trump's phone call was just one moment in a far-reaching operation involving the president's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, two Giuliani associates who have since been indicted partially for their role in the scheme, White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney, the Attorney General, the Secretary of Energy, the Secretary of State, the Vice President of the United States, and, of course, President Trump himself. Tomorrow, two opening witnesses are expected to describe the scope of the scheme to extort Ukraine. That includes Bill Taylor, who's the acting U.S. ambassador to Ukraine at this very moment. A West Point grad who was awarded the Bronze Star for his service in Vietnam. He is a career diplomat. He's worked in Republican and Democratic administrations since all the way back in 1985. He served in Afghanistan shortly after the U.S. invaded that country. He oversaw reconstruction in Iraq. He previously served once before as the U.S. ambassador to Ukraine under George W. Bush. Last month, Taylor testified behind closed doors that he was reluctant to go back to Kiev because of what he had heard concerning the role of Giuliani. Taylor also wrote the now legendary texts that created a contemporaneous written record of the Trump administration's attempt to extort Ukraine. Quote, "Are we now saying that security assistance and a White House meeting are conditioned on investigations? And I think it's crazy to withhold security assistance for help with a political campaign." Taylor also told Congress he believes the origin of the idea to extort the Ukrainian president came from Rudy Giuliani to benefit President Trump. Taylor will be joined at the witness table by Deputy Assistant Secretary of State George Kent. Kent, also a career diplomat who's been part of the Foreign Service for almost 30 years. He currently, right now, oversees State Department policy towards Ukraine. He previously served in Kiev as the Deputy Chief of Mission. Kent testified extensively about Rudy Giuliani's role in the scheme in his deposition, telling Congress, quote, "Mr. Giuliani had been carrying on a campaign for several months full of lies and incorrect information. It was clear that the former mayor had influence on the president in terms of the way the president thought of Ukraine." The two men will be appearing before the 22-member House Intelligence Committee in the same room where Hillary Clinton testified before the Benghazi Committee. Before any of the committee members will be allowed to ask questions, Committee Chair Adam Schiff, along with the majority's attorney Daniel Goldman, will get 45 minutes to question Taylor and Kent. That will then be followed by 45 minutes for ranking member Devin Nunes and the minority's attorney Steve Castor. Now, the Democrats' attorney Daniel Goldman is a former federal prosecutor with the Southern District of New York, where he prosecuted organized crime syndicates. He's also a former MSNBC contributor who's appeared on this very show a whole bunch of times. Republican attorney Steve Castor spent 14 years as a lawyer for Republicans on the House Oversight Committee. During the Obama administration, he was part of the Benghazi investigations and the probe into the Justice Department's Operation Fast Furious. We will get to see them both tomorrow in the highest profile presentation of evidence that we will have had so far. It seems worth, as we prepare for this, pointing something out that's obvious but can get easily lost in the day-to-day of the news cycle. Impeaching a president is a big deal. The spectacle is likely going to be quite compelling, but it is also really, truly a grave undertaking. It's not wrong when critics of impeachment talk about how serious it is to attempt to remove a president who is elected. And it does not speak well for the state of our country that we have come to a point where this process seems so urgently, exceedingly necessary. Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.